I wanted to talk about something that I had to deal with for the longest time. And I think that especially if you're in trans spaces, there's a lot of hatred, self-hatred for trans people, not just for themselves, but obviously for the entirety of like the trans community, especially those that do not have the genetic luxury of already looking like women before transitioning. There's this one post. Every trans person who passes was once a trans person who didn't pass, which is something a lot of you seem to forget. That was vague posted, I guess, during the time of a tweet going pretty viral in the trans community, which is this one. Trans woman looks maxing tier chart. That is insane. Gigahon, Hon, Clocky, Twinkhon, Passoid. Imagine drawing trans women like this and being like, yep, I'm normal. It's so crazy to me because like the fear of never passing was literally the part that prevented me from actually starting to transition. When I was 18, you know, I learned about like the trans community when I was like 19. I was like, what is the point of like getting into that? I'm already through my puberty. I already, you know, I had my voice drop. I'm tall, I've broad shoulders, my hairline is masculine. I wasn't androgynous, I wasn't blessed with, you know, a body that is feminine, perceived to be feminine. And the fear of like starting to transition and not looking good was really difficult for me to overcome this. And I can't imagine being in a space where so many trans people, I don't even know if like all of them are trans. It kind of feels like a psyop at some point in order to deter people from transitioning. I'ma be real. But I think that in a lot of these spaces, everybody's so miserable. Like obviously being trans is difficult and you're valid of feeling dysphoric about it. And to be like, well, I don't have like $20,000 to put into like different cosmetic surgeries. So, you know, I can't have top surgery, I can't have FFS to make up for, you know, being born male, going through male puberty and so on, not having the right genetics. It makes it really gatekeepy. And I think there's a lot of resentment for trans women who just start transitioning, who are publicly trans, and who are actually doing things that feels right to them. I have images, right? Like I had really short hair and I'm, you know, looking like a guy going through all of these things. And I have images where I look back and it's like, yeah, this is just like the journey. If you look at like transition timelines that are always posted on like TikTok or Instagram and so on, it's like, oh, this was before and now after. But like, you don't really see like all of the in-between stages. And it makes it like there's no way you'll ever get there. There's an unfortunate amount of jealousy among the trans community. Yeah. And I think there's also resentment for a lot of like, you know, femboys or those that are like gender fluid and so on to be like, well, you're lucky that you at least look like a girl. You're getting mistaken for a girl. I wish I would get mistaken for a girl. Like that's, you know, that's how I felt. And, you know, sometimes your jealousy, your envy turns into anger and then you lash out on people who just don't deserve it. You know, they're just living their life. And it's also like the culture of like, how the media, like right-wing media, a lot of like these spaces portray trans people, how they talk about trans women to be like, oh, these are like the men in dresses. They're doing like all of these evil things. They're going in there. They're all predators. They all look like men. They're all, you know, like they constantly post this. They even find flaws where there are none. You can literally have a trans woman who just looks like the average, you know, cis woman, and they are still going to be like, oh, your eyes are 1 centimeter too far apart to actually make you be perceived as a woman. Or like, it's crazy. Your nose bridge is like elevated in a sense that doesn't make sense for a female. It's lunacy, obviously. But if you have a lot of self-hatred, if you know, hate that you were born with this mismatch, it just makes it really easy to fall into like this pipeline, into like this space where you just look at this and you're like, you see these caricatures that they constantly post, and you like see yourself in them. And sometimes it's not even like the comments that you get, it's like the amount of comments that you get. That is always like the same thing that they like fixate on. Everything to like invalidate you and so on. And that was actually what, you know, prevented me from even like doing like research, educating myself in like these spaces and so on, and like learning about transitioning, DIY, and so, like all of these things. It made it like so hard, because I was like, well, I never passed anyway, you know, I should just like live with the fact that I'll always be a man. When I was 22, I couldn't take it anymore. I started transitioning. I started HRT at 25. And it took me a couple of years. It's crazy how far I've come in my transitioning journey just by being on HRT and like, you know, putting a little bit of effort into my appearance every now and then. Trying to eat healthier and like work out a little bit more, right? I was on the wrong dosage for a really long time, and I gained a lot of weight during that. I started losing it, and it kind of helped. It kind of helped with like shape, body fat redistribution, really big thing. Like, it doesn't redistribute weight that you already have, like fat that you already have. So you kind of have to lose it and also like gain something, and it's like a balance. If you don't have like a lot of body fat, you're like, if you start HRT, you kind of need that. You shouldn't be afraid of, you know, gaining weight. But yeah, like it really helps to essentially go through this journey again through puberty. But like in these spaces, everything is like so miserable, and I'm sure there are a lot of, you know, trans women who fall into this. I know there are trans content creators actually who are pushing the thing of like, oh, if you want to be a woman, you have to be better than the average cis woman in order to like make up for the fact that you're born male, and you know, need to like fulfill all of like the expectations of women. And like, that's crazy. People will always find a way to invalidate you. People will always insist that you're a man, right? Like the newest trans woman who is now the first leader of the LGBTQI plus Office of Affairs. You know, if you start transitioning early, you have like, you know, puberty blockers, and maybe you have like surgeries and so on. If you have the right environment and genetics, like if everything comes together, then you're allowed to transition. And it makes it really gatekeepy, and it's just not true. Like, there are trans people who transition in their 30s and their 40s, and they look gorgeous. It's not hopeless. But like, if I would just be in these spaces, how they talk about themselves, how they talk about other trans people, it's so sad. In their 60s, right? Yeah. So there are trans women out there who draw other trans women like this, and we have to treat them like precious little children, or else we'll be accused of not letting them be sad about their dysphoria. There are like so many trans people who do not want to be elevated. They just want to be told that, yeah, you suck, you know, like you should just give it up. It's kind of like when you go on Reddit and somebody is complaining that like Champ and League or like a character or something is like overpowered, and then, you know, you tell them how to combat that. They're like, no, I'm offended by the fact that you're offering me advice. Just start telling me that this character is actually OP, and like affirm the fact that everything is like hopeless and the devs need to fix this. Hurt people, exactly. And this is how it feels like in this space. And it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad because I've been there. There are subreddits like the, what is it, r/MTF, that also feels to some extent like a psyop a lot of times. It's so miserable, and obviously, right? Like, society is fetishizing our existence, and we have to meet like the expectations of people who want to like sexualize us. They don't want us to have access to healthcare that makes it so we can pass. They want us to be some form of clocky or whatnot, because I guess like that's for chasers. That's what they like. You know, they come for our healthcare, they come for our environment, they bully us, they shove us into conversion camps. You know, they want to do like medical experimentations, they want to drug like they want to zombify trans people instead of actually alleviating gender dysphoria, something that is provably working and antidepressants don't. It's still then like expecting us to meet their expectations of, you know, what they expect of cis women, which is like, okay, you go through male puberty, you have like all of these things, and now you need to like put in effort. And if you can't meet these expectations, you should just like, you know, hide away. That is like the idea. And like these things, that's like so depressing. I was like, the fear of transitioning and never looking like a woman deterred me from transitioning sooner. Even when I started, I could only see a man in the mirror. It made me depressed and anxious. Nowadays, I still struggle, but more often than not, I get gendered correctly IL. I got gendered correctly the first time in 2024 after bottom surgery. I wasn't even like fully, you know, like dressing up. I just had like a more feminine code, and that stuck with me because that showed me that all of like the irrational fear that I had, everything that like deterred me from like starting and pursuing this, not just be like in survival mode, be numb, be angry, be miserable. It turned out that all of this irrational fear was actually just irrational. You do not need to meet like model type of expectation, right? Obviously, trans people have a really interesting relationship when it comes to, you know, beauty and beauty expectations and so on, because we are being held to a way higher level, and you have like this imposter syndrome, and you will always find flaws, but it's not necessary to go on the street and be gendered correctly. If you take care of your skin, if you take care of your hair, learn like a basic makeup. You know, I don't even do like a lot. I have like some mascara, I have like a little bit of foundation, like evening out my tone, my skin tone, and like my face, eyebrows. You know, they're like little things that you can do in order to help cis people, like strangers, put you in like the right box, right? Obviously, you putting on makeup and so on doesn't mean that, you know, this is what you have to do in order to be a woman, but it helps to be perceived as a woman in a society where makeup is something considered essential, right? There are cis women who, you know, don't wear makeup and then they're going to get misgendered. If you're a cis woman and you have short hair, you're going to get misgendered. If you're a cis woman and you're tall, you have broad shoulders and so on, if you have a deeper voice, you will get misgendered. But for some reason, when it comes to like trans people, then it's like this thing of like, well, don't bother. And transitioning, obviously, you know, like having bottom surgery, having like being on HRT for such a long time, it helped me a lot. It took me a while. And I think like the mental aspect is something that is incredibly difficult to overcome. But like if you're in spaces like this, you will never be happy. Looking at other trans people and feeling like jealousy, envy, giving up on yourself, giving up on like everything, like your pursuit for happiness. Like you're being so cruel to yourself, and then you're also making it everyone else's problem. Like this is insane. There's like this one like trans creator who actually reacted to a video of mine, and like a thing that like stands out is just like, what type of audience are you trying to appeal to by just like sitting there and like regurgitating conservative talking points as a trans woman and being like, these are the reasons why you're actually a man and you're male brained, and actually you need to like act and like sound differently, your voice is too masculine. Like what type of audience are you catering to? Like that's insane to me. Like the speech policing and telling trans women how to act, how to behave, and we're just expected to take this because if you fight back, if you push back against it, then it's like you're just doing this because, you know, you are socialized as a boy, and that just shows everyone that you will always be a man. Sometimes it just takes time, but it also requires you to do a lot of mental work and get in a better environment. These type of spaces, it's like the red pill space, like the incel spaces of like, yeah, women suck. Women are the problem. Women are the reason why I can't get laid. I will never continue my bloodline because women. Like, everybody's just miserable. There's so many VTubers who make it their entire identity to, like, shit-talk me. And they attract a community of people who just hate me. They hate themselves, they hate me. But, like, you will never actually build, like, a supportive environment if this is the way how you garner these people, right? Doomers? Yeah, exactly. Transitioning is worth it. You do not have to look like a model. You don't have to have transitioned when you were 14. There's also like this talking point of like, well, I wasn't allowed to transition when I was younger. So actually, the next generation, future generation of trans people needs to suffer like me. Because how dare they be happy when I couldn't? And that needs to stop. That needs to change. I made a video a while ago talking about like you shouldn't feel ashamed, embarrassed of the fact that you're trans. And there's just so much hurt in this community. It's just painful to always see this, right? To see the constant hate, you know, the things that like TERFs throw at you and the things that they boost, the constant lies. And then there's another article of a trans woman who actually looks like a man. And then you see yourself in them because, you know, you look in the mirror and you just see like some creature. But that's not true. There's so many brain worms and so on. Like, obviously your gender dysphoria is valid, but it's like body dysmorphia, right? Where you look in the mirror and you see things that other people don't see. In the street when you're walking around, people are not going to hyper analyze the way that you walk. Oh, are your hip bones in this angle? That's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Don't give up on transitioning. And if you're in a space where trans people talk this way about other trans people and themselves, look for a better community. Please, I beg you.